I'm Dylan Black. Her name is Amanda Carver. She's part of the organizing team that put together the Housing First and Homelessness Prevention Symposium. She joins us right now. Hello, Amanda Carver.
Hi.
Nice to see you. So this has passed already.
Yes, it has.
So it was a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're also part of the housing program called Ankura.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Can you tell us first of all about Ankura?
So Ankura is about 10 years old now, and what it is, it's not a housing first model, it's a supportive housing model. And the base premise is that we take 3 adults with mental illness, we put them together in a townhouse, we don't staff it, it's not a group home, but there is a program coordinator that comes in and makes sure that the guys are, meeting their individual goals, but also cohering as a group. But what makes it special is that every unit is nestled with volunteers. Mm-hmm. Because when you're a person that lives with mental illness, what tends to happen is that you burn out your friends and family. At the same time, the biggest predictor of relapse is having no social network. And so if you've lived with schizophrenia or bipolar, those sorts of things for many, many years, what tends to happen is that after 5 o'clock, there's no one left to turn to because your social worker and your doctor have all gone home. Mm-hmm. So if you put the volunteers in place, what they do is they recreate that sense of friend and family that you may have burnt out or is a big part that's missing in your life.
Wow.
So they might do targeted things with the guys if that's what they need. If you have a guy that's never really lived independently, doesn't know how to cook, we might team them up with a volunteer that teaches them how to do that. Might help them with cleaning, but they also do things like celebrating birthdays and going to the movies and sitting down and playing a game of chess and kind of recreating what a social life would look like that's socially inclusive.
That's a pretty important organization.
Yes.
So 10 years, so you're celebrating a decade. Mm-hmm. Congratulations on that. And now the symposium that just happened. Okay, so what was the main purpose to the symposium?
The main purpose of the symposium is that we've been trying to grapple homelessness in our society for many, many years. We saw deinstitutionalization in the 70s and 80s where we shut down the big institutions, which we all agree is not where we want to be kind of warehousing people. Mm-hmm. But what we did instead was turn them out into the streets without having the proper mechanism and supports and programs in place to help them to adapt. So we've been dealing with an epidemic since the 80s. And what we've been doing hasn't been working. Like we're using shelters that are meant to be as emergency stopgaps, but they're becoming the long-term housing for a lot of people. And what we're finding is, well, shelters are always important because things are going to come up. There's going to be emergencies. People are going to need a place to go on a cold winter night when an emergency happens. But what we're finding is there's a small group of people that's using 80% of the resources in shelters, and they're staying there for months, for weeks, for years sometimes, or they're getting housed and losing that housing and becoming episodically homeless. So what we did is we wanted to kind of shift the conversation that we're having about homelessness, and we invited in experts from all over the country, researchers, like economists that look at the feasibility of certain studies and talked about alternative ways. Okay.
A 2-day symposium?
Yes, we had a keynote speaker one night with Senator Art Eggleton, and the next day was a full-day symposium with 4 panels.
Okay, and it was a good turnout?
Amazing. We had about 150 people.
Yeah.
There were representatives from service providers. There were engaged citizens. There were people there with lived experiences of homelessness, which was a very important voice to capture in the whole conversation. We had people from as far away as BC, a lot from Toronto, Kingston, the Muskoka area. It was a really good turnout.
So then Housing First, how does it differ from other models that are out there?
Okay, so traditionally what we've done is, of course, there's the emergency shelter, but we also do what we kind of like training programs. So the idea is that you're going to stay in this unit for a certain amount of time, and during that time we're going to teach you how to budget, we're going to teach you how to cook, we're going to teach you life skills, and you must master these life skills before we place you or deem you housing ready. Or the same with addictions, like you need to achieve the sobriety and stay with us in this unit until your sobriety is achieved, and then you're housing worthy. With Housing First, it's the opposite. You start with the house. There's no precondition. There's no precondition for sobriety. There's no precondition for jumping through any hoops. We give you the house first.
Wow.
Right? So I'm a therapist.
Yeah.
If I'm dealing with something small like anxiety with people that basically function from day to day, I say to them, I can't teach you any of the mindfulness, anything to deal with your anxiety unless you're looking after your basic needs. You need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to get those things under your belt first. So it kind of makes sense then. If you give someone a home, you give them dignity, you give them stability, you give them some autonomy, and you reintegrate them into society, the rest sort of falls into place.
Okay.
One thing to note though, it's not simply just giving people keys, because that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's giving them the keys and giving them intensive supports to go with it. And that looks like either intensive case management, which is a case manager with a very low caseload so that they can give people the amount of attention that they need to succeed, or it's an ACT team. And an ACT team is an interdisciplinary team that usually has like a psychiatric nurse and a social worker and a doctor and people and a case manager that come to you. And that's the big difference, is that the supports come to you in your home. You don't have to go in the community. You don't have to go to a particular neighborhood.
It's pretty impressive. And so then what would be some of the key points or things that we can do to help prevent homelessness? Because it just seems like it happens. Like people obviously, nobody wants to be homeless, but how can we help to prevent it?
And we actually did have a whole panel on homelessness, because you're right, we keep treating it when the problem starts, when we could probably prevent it in the first place. So if you're looking at prevention, what we're looking at is making sure mixed income communities are a big part of that in the way we structure our society, because we know that poverty begets poverty. And typically we have a tendency of having communities where we kind of put all our low income people into one area and all our high income into another. Well, what that happens is that when you look at those communities, you see a high number of like single mother households. You see a lot of kids that start school that are not ready to. But if we mix the incomes a little more blended, what we tend to see is that health, mental health, physical health improves just by merit of not having big enclaves of poverty. So that's one thing. Looking at the foster care system is another big part of prevention. We know that being in foster care is the biggest predictor of being homeless as an adult.
It definitely sounds like you know what you're talking about, that's for sure, and it sounds like you have a plan, but you need people to help you with this plan.
We do. I think that we need to keep coming together as service providers, as politicians, as citizens, as people with lived experience, and to keep having these conversations. I did the last panel of the day in the symposium, and what I said is like these experts have come together and they gave to the audience the gift of knowledge. But this can't be where the conversation ends. It needs to be the beginning. And it's up to everyone around us to take that seed and plant it and advocate for what is best. We keep doing the same kind of thing over and over and over and expecting different results. And I would argue that we need to take the evidence and really go with what works.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much for your expertise.
You're welcome.
We appreciate your time. Have a good day.